and today we're gonna take it to the slab. What's good? Welcome to another episode of Kiko's P.A.I.N, the definitive channel of the Florida chain gang, where we turn bad into good and pain into progress. I'm Kiko Cortez, and today we're gonna take it to the slab. What's a slab? That's CM, close management. If going to confinement, going to the box in prison is like going to jail out here, well, going to CM is like going to prison, inside of prison. And a lot of other places call it the SHU, Secure Housing Unit. In Florida, it is CM, close management. There's 3 levels: CM1, CM2, and CM3. I've been to them all. I've gone to CM 3 times. I'm gonna give you a whole breakdown, the different camps, how it is on there, what you gotta do to get off there, what do you gotta do to get on there for that matter. And start off with just give you a rough little structure of what CM is like. Again, you have CM1, 2, and 3. CM1 is the highest and most restrictive of the 3 CM units. If you get placed, you can get placed on any of the 3 levels depending on the offense. It can range from killing someone, stabbing, hitting someone with a lock, fighting with correctional officers, supposedly trying to start a riot, organizing too hard. For a while, and I don't know if they still may be, but for a long time, a cell phone would get you placed on CM. Excessive DRs was even a reason that a lot of people got sent to CM. Too many DRs stacked up in 6 months, and you go to CM. Usually, you would go to the lowest level, CM3, and you could be off in 6 months. And 6 months is the time period that CM is measured in. You go, whether you start on CM1, CM3, you're going to go before a review board every 6 months. I mean, when you're first placed in handcuffs on the compound and taken to the box, i.e. confinement, you're placed in AC confinement. That's administrative confinement. At this point, you still have your radio. Any canteen items that were in your property to a limit are generally allowed to go into your cell. A Bible, but not much else. Legal work, none of your personal clothing or shoes or anything like that is allowed in there. You generally just have a uniform, one pair of boxers, shirts, socks, and shower slides. You have to exchange this out on shower nights. You exchange what you have for what they have, a one-for-one basis. And you sit on AC confinement generally around a week. Within a week, you're usually going to go before the ICT board, ICT team. And something like a little mini court, I say kangaroo court. You go in front of them, the charges are read, found guilty or not, usually guilty, and your discipline is handed out. You could be released that day and have loss of gain time, meaning your out date has gotten further away now, or you could get sent to disciplinary confinement, have to do a certain amount of period in confinement. Now you go over to DC. That means disciplinary confinement. Now your radio is taken away, any books or canteen is taken away, and all you're allowed is legal work, religious material, and that's it. Generally, you're going to do, anywhere 15, 30, 60 days. 60 days and less is your average confinement stay when you're in prison and you go to jail for something. More serious stuff, you racked up a bunch of serious DRs, you might, stay in there 6 months, 7 months. But that's rare. Usually, if you start to rack up that much time, they're just going to go ahead and book you off to CM, and you're going to go for a lot longer. So that's the AC/DC part of things. You're sitting there. You can sit there for months before you actually get sent to CM if that's what happens to you. So you go to the IC team for whatever your DRs, disciplinary reports, are. That's your write-up, your DR, disciplinary report in Florida terminology. You go get your time. Say you get 6 months of DC time. Okay, but now you get papers in the mail saying that you've been referred to CM and that you're going to go before the institutional classification team for review, CM review. You go up in front of them. You already have your DC time. You're already in the box for, in this example, 6 months. Now you go forward. They determine that this is an egregious offense and you need to be placed on CM. They'll determine which level of CM. Every time I've gone, it's been CM1. And if you go to CM1, the fastest you're going to get off of CM, barring some unusual occurrence, is 18 months. Because you go to a review board every 6 months. So from the moment that you're placed, that committee decides that you're on CM, whether you've been shipped there or you have to wait for more months in your confinement at your institution, your time starts ticking. And 6 months from that date, you're going to go back before the review board again. And if you haven't had any write-ups, any DRs, any problems, generally they'll drop you down to the next level, CM2 in this instance, and you'll do 6 months there and go before the review board again. If the same occurs, you've stayed out of trouble, kept your nose clean, they'll drop you down to CM3. 6 more months, once again, review board. You've been clean, all right, we're sending you back to the compound. That's 18 months. That's a best case scenario. You go to CM1. Best case scenario is you're off in 18 months, a year and a half of sitting and locked in a cell. And I'm going to get into the actual what it's like once you're on CM. But to continue with the overview, and my personal experience and how it ties in, my first time going to CM was for a stabbing. I got placed on CM1, and it took me 2 years to get off. I've been to CM 3 times, and I never got off faster than 2 years. Because sometimes you go up, and just because of the egregiousness of the offense, you have a spot-free, clean record your first 6 months on CM, but still they'll say, give me another 6 months on one, and they'll continue you, even though you weren't in any trouble, and you have to do another 6 months on CM1, and you go up to the board. Now, I've been clean a year. Okay, maybe they'll drop you down to 2. If you've killed someone, or you've maybe stabbed a cop, or you've done something really, really egregious besides just your average poke somebody, they might make you ride out however many years on 1, however many years on 2, and however many years on 3 before they feel like, okay, we're going to let you back out. And it's nothing, 5, 6 years without getting in trouble on CM isn't abnormal. But the max amount of time I spent in one stay was 3 years. The other 2 times were for 2 years. And the first time, I never got in trouble while on CM, but they did, like in my first example, the first time I went up to the review board, actually, that's a whole other story. I didn't even go up to the review board because I was basically put down on by the officers, but we're going to get to that in order of the way of the behavior of these officers at these CM camps after we finish up this little overview. So that's CM in its levels, CM 1, 2, and 3. Now, each of these levels has its own characteristics, level of restriction. CM1 being the highest, it's your most restricted. You're locked down in a cell 24/7. 24/7, you are locked down. You get 3 showers a week. To go to the shower, you put your different places have different protocol, but generally you put your soap dish up on the window of the door. You stand at the door in your boxers ready as they're pulling out, so one cell at a time, another cell, another cell. CM1, excuse me, I got ahead of myself. You are one man in one cell, no roommate allowed. Your entire time on CM1, you are in a cell by yourself. When you get to CM2, you can have a roommate. Most CM camps have 2 bunks in the cell, and so you will have a roommate once you get to CM2. FSP, Florida State Prison, the entire prison is 1 bunk per cell. So no matter what, CM1, 2, or 3, you're going to be without a roommate for your entire stay there. But back to CM1, you're going to have no roommates. You're in your cell 24/7. You come out for a shower. To come out to a shower, you back to the door, put your hands out the flap like this. They cuff you. You turn back around, and you walk out. You back out of the cell, and you're escorted with an officer, have an arm on your bicep, and escort you to the shower, place you in the shower, close a set of barred doors, door made of bars, put your hands back out, uncuff you, and you proceed with your shower as quickly as possible because they're coming back quick. That's how you have to shower the entire time you're on CM. You're showering in this locked shower. You get escorted back to your cell. You're locked down. You're not going anywhere. You get the phone one time a month on CM1. Most places it's a portable phone that's come handed into your flap. One 15-minute call one time a month. And you better hope your people pick up, because if they don't and they come back to get that phone and you haven't got to use it, you're SOL for another month. So as far as recreation is the same on all three levels of CM. You get generally 3 days a week. I believe the actual legality is 6 hours a week. And it's supposed to be, generally it's broken up into 3 2-hour trips. Now, recreation is the same way that you're pulled out of your cell. You get pulled out of your cell for anything. You go to see the dentist, you have to put your hands out of the flap, handcuff, and you get escorted. When you're going to recreation, it's the same. Cuff up, escorted to a behind the dorm area. It's just nothing but cages of chain link fence cages, basically like a dog run kennel, where you're then put in there. The door's locked, uncuffed through the hole in the fence door, and there you're left for the next hour to 2 hours. Most of them have a pull-up and dip bar within this cage, but if we're talking about basically as much room as you can see in this camera frame, and you work out, come back in. You don't get to go in and shower. Showers are when they are, usually in the evening on which days. It's not necessarily the same days that you have recreation. But recreation is like this through all 3 levels of CM. You're going to go at most 3 times a week. But let me tell you, talking about it is way easier than doing it. Because them police, they don't like, the more people that go to rec, the more they got to work. So they do certain things to, dissuade you from going on a regular basis. First of all, anytime you come out of your cell, well, it's not always enforced everywhere, but for recreation, it definitely is. You have to strip naked, bend over, spread your butt cheeks, cough, the whole 1, 2, get dressed. It can be like that for a lot of other places. Generally, they don't do that for you in the shower. You're just in your boxers and you go. But any given time, they can make you go through. You're going to a visitation, you got to do it. You're going up to a sick call, stripping, busting your cheeks, coughing. And so there's that, that most people don't want to subject themselves to unnecessarily. But there's also the fact that you're sitting there waiting. You wake up early in the morning to get on the list to go to recreation. They come by. You've been waiting. You've got your room right. And they just look and they make up something. They may say, oh, that shoe is out of line. Or stuff's not organized in your locker properly. Or that bed's not made tight enough. You're not going. And that's what they give you an explanation. Most of the time, you're not even getting an explanation. They're just going to keep it on moving. And then maybe when they're bringing everybody back, you'll be like, hey, Sarge, why you didn't pull me? Your bed wasn't right. And that's it. And so it can be a real trial and a real test of one's temperament. You want to get to your vitamin D, get your workout. It's something that you might structure your CM time around, and just like on a whim, it can be taken from you. And so that's recreation. But moving down to the levels, back on level 1, while you're still on doing your disciplinary time that you were given back at your camp, you still have to do that here. So you're going to get put on the CM, but you're still on disciplinary status. You don't have your radio. You're not allowed to order Canteen. You can order stamps and stationery and soap and deodorant, the basics. But you're not allowed to order books from the library. You can't have your radio. You got religious material and legal material, and you're just sitting in a room, and that's all you got for months. But then once you complete your disciplinary time, now you're able to order commissary, canteen, depending on your state, what word you use. They say canteen in Florida. And you're able to order books from the library. And I can guarantee to be the books you want or any good, but you can order books from the library and you can get your radio, if I haven't already mentioned that. And Canteen works like this on CM. When you're on CM1 and CM2, you're allowed 5 food items a week. And what 5 food items mean, one honey bun is a food item, one pack of cookies is a food item, one bag of chips is a food item. And believe me, there's not many items to choose from. Saltine crackers, a couple flavors of chips, a couple flavors of cookies, one kind of honey bun, pack of peanuts. These are your main single food items. Each one of them counts as a food item. So you might be able to get 3 honey buns and 2 packs of cookies, or 2 bags of chips, a honey bun, and 2 packs of cookies. That's for the whole week. The one exception is peanut butter squeezers and cheese squeezes. 1 or 5 peanut butter squeezes counts as one food item. 5 cheese squeezes counts as one food item. So you can get 25 peanut butter squeezes would count as 5 food items. 25 cheese squeezes would count as 5, etc. But you can mix it up. Go get you 5 peanut butter squeezes, 5 cheese squeezes, 2 honey buns, and a bag of chips. This is generally what, and you can order stamps, you can order paper, you can order basic hygiene stuff. And let me tell you, the food they give you, you get 3 trays a day, not good food. And supplementing that with 5 food items a week or 7 days in a week, that's less than a food item each day to supplement the meager rations that you're on coming on your tray. And just to interject as we break everything down, hunger. Some people think about the solitude, the isolation, the sheer boredom of being locked in this small box for months and years at a time. But I'm here to tell you that the overriding feeling, thought, emotion, whatever you want to call it, is hunger. On CM, you will experience hunger on a daily basis. But to continue with the breakdown, CM1, you're allowed these 5 food items. CM2, still 5 food items. It's not till you get to CM3 where you're allowed to order 10 food items a week. Still paling in comparison to average canteen order if you were on the compound going to Canteen, where you would be able to fill up a bag and spend up to $100 each week. But after so long, only having 5 food items a week, 10, you at least get 1 a day and a couple more to sprinkle in throughout your week. So that's on Canteen. Now, when you go down to CM2, unless you're an FSP, which only has 1-man cells, you will now have a roommate, which usually isn't a good thing. You might think you were lonely on CM1, but sometimes lonely is better than the alternative. And so now you have a roommate, still only getting 5 food items a week, still getting handcuffed to go out to rec 3 times a week. Now you get the phone every 2 weeks. So you get 2 phone calls a month. And now, depending on each prison, each CM camp does it differently, but you get day room. And this means that they handcuff you in the front now, but these handcuffs have a black Velcro belt, and they belt your hands to your waistline. So you're belted like this, and you come out of your cell like this, and you can go, maybe you can get on the wall phone. You can sit in the day room and watch TV. Some have card tables where you play cards like this. And you get that twice a week on CM2. But again, each camp has its own way of doing it. And some, it basically doesn't happen. Others, you get it when you're supposed to get it. But still, you're locked in your cell all the time. The 23 and 1, I still don't see how the math adds up to the 1. Because you're only coming out for an hour, maybe an hour and a half, twice a week. And you're going to rec. And then still, the whole time, you're still locked down in a cage, in a shower, whatever it is. And so that's CM2. Now you get to CM3. CM3 is the first time that you'll get to walk out of your cell without a pair of handcuffs on your wrist. If you're in the cell block on the wing, they'll roll your door, and now you can walk out with your hands free for the first time in what's probably been years, at least a year, year and a half. And you know, they have more day room. Still the same 3 rec yards, but you get to walk to it without being handcuffed. Still only 3 showers a week. One difference on CM3 is now you get to have a job. Well, theoretically, some people get a job on CM3. It's inmates on CM3 that pass out the food to the inmates on CM1 and CM2. And it's a coveted job for many because when they bring these trays, there's usually a few extra trays, and the runarounds get to eat those trays. So the whole, again, hunger is a driving motivation on CM at all times. And people are dying to have this job where they can get out there and not be hungry. The way CM is once upon a time, before my time starting to go to CM in 2006, multiple camps used to have confinement units where they would house inmates that were designated on CM. It was just a more like helter-skelter, random program spread out all over the state. But through litigation by inmates, filing pro se and fighting the system, they changed it to where now only certain prisons could house CM inmates. And these prisons became entirely CM, except for maybe one dorm of support staff inmates who work cooking chow hall, do the laundry. And after this legislation was passed, those camps became Santa Rosa, which is in Santa Rosa County, Panhandle, Florida, almost, Pensacola, almost to the Alabama, Charlotte CI in Charlotte County, Florida, Punta Gorda, and FSP. Rayford, the Florida State Prison, which houses death row and the death chamber. These were supposed to be the only three, but I found out through personal experience, they also had 2 dorms of CM at Union, aka Rayford, which is right next door to Florida State Prison, where I was housed the first time on CM. But ostensibly, 3 camps, Charlotte, Santa Rosa, and FSP were the 3 CM camps from the early 2000s to 2010, 11, 12, when they closed Charlotte and eventually opened another prison called Swanee. So when you're placed on CM at your camp, say for instance, my first camp where I was placed on CM was Liberty CI in the Panhandle. I sat in the box for a couple months, and then I was shipped to Union CI, Rayford. They only had CM1 there, single man cells. I spent a year on CM1 at Rayford, and when I was dropped down to CM2, I had to go to Charlotte or Santa Rosa. I looked up and went to Charlotte. Much better time doing time in CM. And I'll get into the characteristics of each of these camps in a moment. But I went to Charlotte. I spent 6 more months on CM2, 6 months on CM3, and I was released from CM at Charlotte in 2008 after doing 2 years. The second time, I was placed on CM at Martin CI in 2009, and I was sent to Santa Rosa. I spent a year at Santa Rosa, and just as I made CM3 after making a year, they opened Swanee CI, a brand new camp, just for CM, and I was one of the first 25 inmates sent there, with more coming by the day. At that point, Charlotte CI was closed, and all of those inmates were brought to Swanee. I spent another year there on CM 2 and 3, and I was released in 2011. My third and final time on CM was 2013. Columbia was the camp where I was placed on CM and sent to FSP, Florida State Prison, in which I spent 3 years there before finally being released at the end of 2015. Those are my experiences on CM. And it just gives you a little idea of how you get bounced and sent around. Once you're getting ready to get off, I mentioned it in my last video, how when it's finally your time, you've finally been released, and you're waiting, you're getting on the bus from the CM camp, and everyone's anxious. Where am I going? Oh, where am I going to go? Where am I going to go? And I'm going to tell you, most people in the Florida prison system, maybe I'll get more into this in another video, don't want to go to the Panhandle. It's country, redneck, racist officers. It's draconian. It's just a whole other level of time than what you're generally going to do in South Florida, where it's just a little better. I mean, like I said, in future videos, I can maybe enlighten you and elaborate further on what makes what better. But the day of your release from CM, it's almost like a mini version of getting out of prison. And I'll say that as much as it was a bad experience being on CM every single time, the one thing I was grateful for was that it broke up my 20-year prison sentence. Whereas instead of looking at this long, far off date, you're just looking 6 months ahead, 6 months ahead. Your entire life on CM is measured in 6 month increments where you're just counting down. I got 3 more months to go up to the board, 2 more months to go up to the board. I go up to the board next month. When you go, oh, I go in July. And this is the way we talk back and forth, waiting. And it makes you stop looking way past the horizon to your out date into something that's closer, more tangible, and near at hand. And it's almost like a mini version of getting free, coming off of CM and being released onto a open compound. Of course, it can carry a lot of anxiety with it, depending on what the situation. Why did you go to CM? Did you stab somebody? You hurt somebody else? Okay, am I gonna get here? Is his gang brothers is gonna be beef immediately? Am I gonna have to continue this war right now, or is it gonna be gravy? And am I gonna get to enjoy some of the better things of incarcerated life? Be what they may. But there's in the moment when you get on the bus, there's this excitement. Where am I gonna go? Oh, mixed with anxiety because you don't want to go to a bogus camp. And then they don't always tell you. Many things, usually they don't. They send you to a reception center. If you're in a CM camp like Charlotte in South Florida, you're going to go to Miami Reception Center. If you're in Central Florida, you're going to go to Orlando or Lake Butler. Or if you're in the Panhandle, you're going to go to Washington. And we have 4 different reception centers in Florida. And you'll sit there for however long it is, less than a week, until the bus that day's run goes to the prison you're going to be going to. And that's generally when you find out where you're going to go. Be like, okay, only Mayo and Taylor go on these days. Okay, you're going to one of them, etc. So you ride the bus, you get to your new camp, and you try to start all over again. Every time I would go to CM, my focus would be on getting off as soon as I possibly could. You couldn't. There's not much you could do on CM. I've had runs on CM, and I'll do a whole video on it where I had a good hustle going on and I was making money from behind the door. But for the most part, you're extremely limited on what you can do to provide for yourself, make something happen off of a hustle in there. And so my goal was always to get back off as soon as I could and start back building at a new spot. And so I would generally, they tell you to stay off the door. They want you to stay off the door. They don't want you yelling out the window. I would try to abide by this. I generally, stick to myself, read books, study, try to do something, to fill the time, listening to sports on AM radio, following your sports teams. And that was always my objective, to get off as soon as possible. Sometimes that wasn't possible. Sometimes you bump heads with somebody, you get into a fight. I've gotten into several fights on CM, and you're instantly going to get continued. When you go up to, you're going to have to finish that 6-month period. You got this DR. Now you go up to the board. Oh, you got into a fight. Okay, you got to do 6 more months. Some places will bump you back up. Say, for instance, you might be on CM3 and you get into a fight. Now you're starting all the way back at CM1. You got to work your way down. And so it can be a lot of anxiety through these 6 months. If any given time you catch a DR during this 6 months, you still have to finish that 6 months to get to the review board. And then, once you get in, you're starting all over again, because they're not going to drop you down a level or release you from CM if you've had a DR. And so, I've gone through that several times and been continued. When I could have been off in 18 months or less, I did 3 years. I did 2 years. And one particular source of this was, as I explained before, when you make it to CM3, now you can have a job as a runaround passing out trays. And it's a highly coveted job, again, because you can eat and whatnot. And this job, I'll tell the story more fully at another time, but someone chirping from behind the door. Because one thing I've learned about humans, you put a door in between them, and they become the bravest people in the world. I've been talked to by somebody on the other side of a steel door in ways that I've never been talked to face to face with another human being. And these people will show you their genitalia. They'll say this, they'll say that, but they might never come out of their cell. You can be in there and refuse to come out for anything, and no one's going to be able to do anything to you. So a lot of people use CM to stay safe. It's a little more honorable way. You know, you check in, you're going to be locked into a cell, you're going to be on PC, protective custody, but with all types of shame and ignominy cast on that play. But if you're on CM, you did something crazy, whatever. Oh, you might have did it. Okay, all right, whatever you did, where you stabbed somebody or you did whatever you might have done to get on there, might garner a little bit of respect. But now you really a coward, and you're gonna get little petty DRs while you're on there, knowing that you're gonna keep getting continued, and while it may be a more miserable way of time, you're safe. You know, and so a lot of people choose to do their time like that. And but to continue with my experiences, you know, I've been in the fights where I got continued, and it's really why I developed a dislike for the job of being a runaround. After being a runaround led me to fight and get continued, get gassed, whatnot. My second time on CM, after that, I never wanted to have the job again, though I did get it again. And that's one way you can get continued. But the most common fighting on CM is between roommates, because you never know what type of person you're gonna have in this cell, and how they're gonna live their life. You know, you have, and I'm gonna get into this more, and it deserves a whole video. But you have what we call gunners in the Florida Department of Corrections, and these are people that their thing is exposing their genitalia to women staff, whether nurses or officers, etc., and masturbate whether these women can see them. And it's like a huge thing in the Florida Department of Corrections, and generally accepted, though there's a large part of the population that looks down upon such activity. And the worst thing is if you're locked in a cell, whether in confinement or on CM, and you got a roommate that's his fetish, that's his, sickness. And, it's generally going to lead, either you're going to be like, hey, do what you do, just don't do that in front of me, give me a heads up, I'm going to go lay on my bunk and throw a cover over my head, or you're going to do something to him when he do it. You're going to warn him, and when he do it, you're going to bust him. You know what I'm saying? Those are your options. And knowing, all right, you're going to get continued now. And, but it is what it is. That's just the life you lead. Certain, things that you just have to endure so as to maintain your honor, your self-respect, your code. And this is one of those things. But the craziest thing I come across is, well, it's not the craziest, but it's just, I find it mind-blowing, is that you have certain people, they're not these scared to go into the open compound types that you see them as a check-in. It's these crazy mofos that, for whatever reason, they rather be able to act out in any manner possible. When an officer comes to their door, they rather be able to tell that F you, pussy, this, that, and the other, suck my blank, this, bop, 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 and be able to talk freely to this person who generally you don't want to offend, because you're going to have the little bit of privilege you have taken from you, beaten, put in this, confinement, whatever. The freedom, and I've been there before where I basically had, lost all reasons to be productive and sociable, and it just was at rock bottom. And now, with no hope comes no fear. When you have nothing to hope for, you have nothing to worry about. And so now it's a certain liberating feeling where you're like, all the things that you bit your tongue for, all the things you didn't do because you had some type of, something to lose, is gone, and you can go ahead and freely express yourself. And I've been there, I understand it, but accomplishing things, achieving goals, progressing was always more important to me than any fleeting enjoyment for being a, say what I want to say to somebody. But you have people that will spend years, not just on CM, but on disciplinary confinement CM, where they don't have radios, they don't have a canteen, they don't have anything. They just got the 3 trays coming to them. They get 3 showers, and they get to go to rec 3 times a week. They don't even have, because on CM, if you own a personal pair of shoes and shorts and other like t-shirts and stuff that you bought yourself, you get to have those in your cell with you. Small things, but they matter. On DC, on CM, you don't get to have that. So you're just in there. If you have a pair of shorts and it's a hot summertime, and believe me, there's no air conditioning unless you're at Swanee. It's hot as you can imagine, and maybe hotter than you can imagine until you're actually experiencing it on a 24-hour basis. And not being able to, you can't lay there in your boxers. But if you have a pair of gym shorts, you can wear your gym shorts with your t-shirt, and it's, you know, a little more manageable. If not, you're wearing this Class A uniform with this thick blue material, and it's a nightmare. But people, you have these guys that will stay there for years. They have years of DC time, and they would just, and to me, I can only equate it with some form of mental problem. But and also one thing I've noticed is depending, particularly in a place like FSP, which, you know, now today's day and age, FSP is so locked down and so controlled that it's rare that you're going to see an inmate murder another inmate. There's just not as many opportunities. At one point in time, it was a war zone. 80s, 90s, you know, people getting killed, people getting raped. It was just, you know, what everything that you visualize in like the big house. But now it's so restricted, so locked down that anybody beating anybody is usually correctional officers beating inmates and handcuffed inmates or outnumbered inmates. And so you don't have so much fear for getting killed while you're on CM, but maybe getting beaten by officers. If it comes to that. And believe me, I've seen some situations where someone said something to an officer. He come back from a shower and he says, "Hey, officer, I have 4 packs of AA batteries in here. My batteries are gone." You know, because they'll shake your cell down while you're in the shower. They come flip your cell. Another thing to dissuade you from going out. And you come in, "Hey, officer, my batteries are gone." All you did was raise a legitimate complaint to your dorm sergeant. They, I don't know what you're talking about. Boom, close the door. You go about your business. They come back, and you know there's cameras on these officers, but you'll hear them calling the radio. They'll just yell out. I can see for myself the inmate laying in his bunk reading a book. This officer say, "Inmate, stop cutting yourself," or "Inmate, stop hanging yourself." Just for it to be like picked up on the radio or the audio, open the flap, spray the inmate while he's laying there in his bed reading a book, pop the flap, spray him with gas, run in there, flip him, give him some DRs. And, you know, it's just stuff you watch and you just think, damn, he didn't even do anything but just ask about his batteries. That could happen to me. This isn't an inmate raising hell, causing problems. You know, this is a victim. He just got victimized. And, you know, it can be, it'll get your adrenaline going when you watch something happening like that, and you know whether they gas the inmate, whether they beat the inmate, and you just know there's no difference between that inmate and me. There's nothing that why that can't happen to me just like it happened to him. And you know that's a bad feeling. And it's like, what do? You know, you file a grievance, you try to get the word out that these inmates did this. Okay, now you got a target on your back, and you know so different people handle that differently, but it's just one more factor of CM. And that factor will bring me back to what I alluded to earlier, where my very first time on CM, I'd done my 6 months, I hadn't had a DR, and it was time for me to go see the review board. That morning, some big, tall, burly country boy officer at Union CI came to my door and he put a paper on my flap and he said, "Sign that." I was like, "What is that, sir?" Sign it. No, excuse me, sir. What is that? Sign it. I look, and it's a refusal. It's me signing saying I refuse to go to the review board. And I said, "But sir, I would like to go to the review board." Sign that paper. Now, Union CI Rayford, at this time, in the CM units, officers beat inmates almost on a daily basis. It was going down constantly. It was mostly Union at that time was looked at somewhat as a good time on CM because of the way it was easier to get contraband like cigarettes and food items while you were back there. But the flip side of that was you could get beaten for almost anything at any given time. And in this particular instance, I wanted to go to review board. I wanted to say my piece and get a chance to go down to CM too. But I knew what time it was. If I didn't sign that paper, I was going to get beat. I was going to get lied on. I was going to get paperwork put on me. Because they don't just beat you and leave you in your blood. They say you did something and get you in more trouble. And so what I do, I sign the paper, of course. I'm not a fool. And so I go. I do 6 more months on CM, one. And then I go. They let me go after a year to see my meeting. Different officers working at the time. I go. I get dropped down to CM2 and I go to Charlotte. Which Charlotte, when it's an open compound, is a murderous compound. But for CM, it was a great place to be because the officers were more laid back. This is in South Florida, Punta Gorda, Charlotte, 30 minutes north of Fort Myers. The officers generally were more easy to deal with, and they weren't beating inmates like that. But and then you have Santa Rosa. Santa Rosa was probably the worst CM camp for a long time because, like I said, at Union, yeah, you could get beat and they'll do you dirty, but there were some benefits. Again, getting certain contraband food items that you shouldn't have, being able to get them through the runarounds, etc. To offweigh that, offset, outweigh. But at Santa Rosa, it had none of the good and all of the bad. These officers would beat you, they would lie on you, and one of their favorite tactics, which is employed everywhere, but extra at Santa Rosa, is placing inmates on strip. And strip is no fun. Strip generally lasts 72 hours. They take you out of your cell, strip you to your boxers in the shower, take your clothing, everything. While you're in the shower, they take all of your property out of your cell. They take your mattress out of your cell. They take your sheets. They take everything. They don't even leave the toilet paper in the cell. The toilet paper is going to be outside your door for someone to let you have when you need it, when you ask for it. You're placed back in the cell with a hard metal bunk, concrete floors, and a hard metal toilet and your boxers. You don't even have your shower slides. You're barefoot. And you're in there like that for 72 hours. Try sleeping on a hard, cold, metal bunk on the concrete in your boxers 3 days. It'll be the longest 3 days of your life, I guarantee it. And I personally speak from experience. This happened to me. And I got a story that's way more in-depth to outline my experiences. But at Santa Rosa, you've seen this all the time. You would come out for the shower, like one of your only times you could really look up and down the tier, and you just look and you can see there's a roll of toilet paper in the door. They have a little marker letting you know that this inmate's on strip, and you can see nearly half of the wing is on strip. This is just, and it's bad. And Santa Rosa, so they would beat you, they would gas you. The worst is when you're on strip, and then now they gas you while you're on strip because anything you might have covered your face with or defended yourself with is gone, and it's just you and your boxers in this concrete cell and gas being poured in there. That's, if you look back to my video of the murder of Sergeant Thomas, I tell you about Black Jesus the Can, and I'll give you in another video. We'll talk about the exact method for how they gas inmates and cell extract inmates, which has happened to me personally. But for now, just to keep giving you the outline of these certain camps, Santa Rosa was a nightmare to be in. No one wanted to go to it. I heard that it eased up after my last time there, these last couple of years before getting released. And then Swanee was the new kid on the block. Again, as I mentioned, I was one of the first 25 inmates to be on CM at Swanee. And the first year, the only year I was there, it was pretty sweet as far as the interaction. You were in air conditioning, and the officers, the way they interacted with you. But most of these officers had never been CM officers. When they built that prison, they pulled these inmates from surrounding prisons, and then they put them on CM. But they didn't really know. They hadn't developed that just CM mentality in an officer and the way of treating inmates yet. So they almost treated you normal. But after I left, I know the feds had to come in and investigate Swanee because it got as bad as any of these other prisons or worse, where they were beating inmates, killing inmates, so on and so forth. And that's Swanee. So, CM, as I mentioned, played a strong influence on my time in prison in Florida. I spent 7 years total on CM. Of 19 and a half years that I was in the Florida Department of Corrections, 7 of it was on CM, and 3 more years cumulatively of segregation, confinement time on individual compounds. So out of the 19 and a half years, 10 years of it, over half, I was locked in a cell for various reasons. And I'm going to tell my particular story more as we go. I just want to lay the foundation for a lot of what this world is like. So as I'm telling the story, I don't have to keep going on, digressing. But CM will come back in many of these. My time on CM, what it was like for me, and how I did my time on CM. But I just want to give you this overview. But you know I'm not about to let you go without a little food for thought. What I want you to take from this isn't, man, how bad is this, how bad that is. I don't know if I can make it. You could make it. Humans adapt to anything. Humans made it through concentration camps in Germany and whatnot. Vietnam, Cambodia, Pol. Humans can deal with anything. The power to adapt is amazing. So you can go through anything. What I want you to take from this is what it would be like for you to be on there. The chances are it never happened, and I hope it doesn't for you. What I want you to take away is use it figuratively. I was trapped in these situations. I couldn't get out of those situations as much as I wanted to. There was no action that could get me out of there any earlier. Inaction was and patience was my only options. And so I want you to, in life out here in the streets, we find ourselves trapped. There's things that almost all of us want to do. You might want to go to school. You might want to do this, but you might feel trapped with children. You might feel trapped in a bad relationship. You might feel economically trapped, because you're just not making this money and you don't have the time to go to school, to get this, to do that, to advance your situation. And so you just feel trapped in your current circumstances. And maybe in the short term, you are trapped. But the one thing I want you to know is that there's always something that you can do while trapped in a situation. While I was on CM, I wrote books, I studied languages, I learned law. I just spent my time trying to better myself, trying to reading as much as I could. Motivational books, business books, sometimes just pure fantasy just to escape. But I tried to spend my time doing the things that I could do. And there's always something that we can do. And you could be trapped in a situation and feel like there's nothing you could do to actively further your goals. But there's always something. I don't care if you sit down and you write a list of the things that you're going to do once you can do something. There's always something that can be done. You sit there first and dream and just understand where you truly want to go. What do you truly want to do with your life? That's the first step. You have to have a target before you aim. And then once you have your target, you aim. You figure out how do I get to this goal? How do I hit this target? And that's studying. You can do studying no matter what. I'm out here in the streets now. I'm a part of YouTube University. Anything I want to know, I watch YouTube videos on it. And I learn, I teach myself. God knows what I could have made of myself if I had YouTube the whole time I was in prison. I'd be so knowledgeable, it would be ridiculous. But you can research, you can study. There's always something you can do. And when you feel trapped, that's what you need to do. You need to think, what do I want? How do I get it? How have other people got it? What is going to need to change in my life for me to start trying to get it? Make a list, brainstorm. When you figure this out, that's the first major step. And you'll be surprised that once the ball starts rolling, how that thing can pick up speed. It's inertia, the law of inertia. Inertia will keep you in place, but it'll also keep you moving once you break inertia. Keep on pushing, baby. So the message here is, okay, it's informative. Now you understand what CM is like. And if you have any questions that I didn't cover or you want me to expound further on, you already know. Leave a comment. Ask me the question. Hit the like button while you're at it. Let's go ahead and subscribe if you ain't already subscribed yet, man. Kiko's P.A.I.N. We're just going to keep building, growing. We're going to achieve these goals. We're going to look for our goals. We're going to work for them, and we're going to get them. And we here. And this is a community of our people who are going to come up from nothing and achieve something. So with that said, you already know. Y'all stay blessed.